Good evening, everyone. Happy Thursday night. Welcome to tonight's Telephone Town Hall. I'm Mark Silverstein, your host for the evening, and tonight we are honored to hear from Barry Jackson, who is running for Rockville City Council. He's going to talk with us about why he's running, what his qualifications are, and what he hopes to do. We'll also be taking your questions live. So if you have a question for Barry, just press 0 on your phone keypad now to be added to the queue, and we'll try to answer as many questions as possible. Again, my name is Mark Silverstein. We are here this evening dialing out to thousands of people so that they can hear from Barry Jackson about his campaign for Rockville City Council. We're going to get started in just a moment, but for those of you who are just joining us and want to ask a question on tonight's event, all you have to do is press 0 on your phone keypad to be added into the queue. We're going to try and take as many questions as possible. We'll also be running some polls, and we're, of course, going to be hearing from Barry Jackson himself in just a moment or two. So let me just take you through it one more time. We are dialing out to thousands of people so that they can hear from Barry Jackson about his campaign for Rockville City Council. We're getting started any moment now, and all you have to do, if you want to ask Barry a question, press 0 on your phone keypad to be added into the queue. We're going to try to take as many questions as possible. Hope everybody's having a great evening as we prepare to hear from Barry Jackson, the candidate for City Council. We are honored to hear from him. We're going to ask him why he's running, what his qualifications are, what he hopes to do, his time at the King Farm Council, and a lot of why he thinks he should be the candidate that you vote for coming up in the next several weeks. If you have a call, if you have a question, please press 0 on your phone keypad to be added into the queue, and we're going to hear from as many people as possible. We like to hear your questions. We're going to be talking about a little bit with Barry about his experience, why he's running, what his top priorities are, why he wants to be on City Council, his philosophy regarding constituent service. What does constituent service mean to him? He's going to tell about his work on the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department, and how businesses and Rockville City Council can better work together as they deal with different and sometimes difficult economic times. Just want to take you through what we're dialing out again tonight to thousands of people in the Rockville area. And we're ready to hear from Barry Jackson. Barry, great to be with you tonight. Tell us about Barry Jackson, why you're running for office, what your hopes and dreams are, what your political points are.
No, thanks, Mark. Thank you for doing this. Hello, everybody. So I'm Barry Jackson. I'm the president of King Farm Citizens Assembly, and I'm running for City Council to bring proven leadership and real results to the council. Just so you know, we called out tonight to every neighborhood in Rockville. I'm really serious about being a representative for all of Rockville. So our City Council will soon lose its most seasoned members. We need a council member who knows our community, our issues, and how to get things done. We need a voice on the council to represent all of us. I have a proven track record of bringing people together, and I'm ready to bring that leadership to the council. I'm your neighbor, friend, and a proud member of our community. I've lived in Rockville for nearly 20 years with my wife and 2 daughters. We have found it to be a diverse and inclusive community here in Rockville, and we cannot be happier. We watched our daughters go from College Gardens Elementary to Julius West Middle School, and now both are attending Richard Montgomery High School. I have years of experience leading the King Farm Citizens Assembly. I'm a community gardener. In summer, my family is at the pool swimming for the King Farm swim team. I'm active in the disability community. 12 years ago, I suffered a stroke. it left me with a different perspective that I will take onto the council. I worked with Rockville senior community to the neighborhood villages and advocated for legislative change at the American Cancer Society, Armstrong Foundation, and AARP. I have worked with the police department to keep King Farm a safe community, and I will fight to fully fund the police to help keep every neighborhood safe when I'm on the council. As we all know, COVID threw Rockville into an unforeseen crisis. Small businesses struggled, parents had to juggle their work and at-home learning, and we all had to navigate uncharted waters. We still have a lot of work to do to get our community back on track. There's so much at stake for Rockville, from supporting local schools to investing in public and pedestrian safety and protecting our neighborhood businesses. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm ready to get to work. I will help make our neighborhoods and schools safe, work to make sure that people don't spend their entire paycheck on housing, and fight for smart growth that fits Rockville's future needs. I know that I can't do this alone, and that is why I need your help. I will work with other members of the council and with every resident in every neighborhood to bring Rockville together.
Barry, that is great to hear. I am very excited to present you with a number of questions. We're going to hear from people in the audience who are listening. If you want to ask Barry a question, press 0 on your phone, and we will have you present your question to Barry. And one of the things he talks about is representing everyone. So I want to hear a little bit about how he plans to represent everybody, because that seems to be an important point that you're making, Barry. But before we hear more from Barry Jackson, we want to hear from you. Let's take a poll. This is going to be fun. What do you think are the biggest issues facing our community? Press 1 if it's crime and public safety. Press 2 if it's the lack of affordable housing. Press 3 if it's seniors issues like aging in place. Press 4 if it's lack of support for local business. And press 5 if it's another issue. Let me go through that one more time for you. Press 1 if it's crime and public safety that you think is the biggest issue facing our community. Press 2 if you think it's the lack of affordable housing. Press 3 if it's seniors issues like aging in place. Press 4 if it's lack of support for local business. Press 5 if it's other issues. We're taking the poll now. We're hearing from you. Again, if we have a question for Barry at any time, press 0 on your keypad to get in line. Now let's hear some more from Barry Jackson.
So I just want to reiterate, because this is really important, we're calling out now to every neighborhood in Rockville. I'm really serious about being a representative for all. So just to reiterate for anybody that's just joining, I'm Barry Jackson. I'm your neighbor, friend, and a proud member of our Rockville community. I'm running to be your voice on the City Council. I've lived in Rockville for nearly 20 years with my wife and 2 daughters. I have years of experience leading the King Farm Citizens Assembly, working with Rockville senior community through the neighborhood villages, and working for legislative change at the American Cancer Society and AARP. I'm active in the disability community. 12 years ago, I suffered a stroke. It left me with a different perspective that I will take onto the council. Now, our city council will soon lose many of its most seasoned members, and so we need a council member who knows the community, the issues, and how to get things done. So I have a proven track record of bringing people together, and I'm ready to bring that leadership to the council. I bring experience, leadership, and real results. I'm running for city council because I want to bring transparency, civility, efficiency, and more communication within the city government and with Rockville's residents. I want to fully fund our police department and ensure they continue to support innovative policing programs. There's so much on the line for Rockville, whether it's supporting local schools, investing in public and pedestrian safety, or protecting our neighborhood businesses. There's a lot of work to do, and I'm ready to do it. So I will help make our neighborhoods and schools safe. I'll work to make sure people don't spend their entire paycheck on housing, and I will fight for smart growth that fits Rockville's future needs. Mark?
Barry, we got some results from our Insta poll. The top line of crime and public safety, 44% of the people who are joining us tonight believe crime and public safety is the number one issue. The lack of affordable housing, 11% of those taking the poll. Seniors issues, 11% as well. Believe that's the number one issue. Lack of support for public business or for local business, 11%, and other issues, 22%. So crime and public safety, the number one concern among the voters that we're talking with tonight. Lack of affordable housing, seniors issues, and lack of support for local business, all tied at 11%, and other issues, 22%. So let's do a little question and answer, Barry. What made you really, what was the first thing that you decided, made you decide to want to run?
Yeah, so it goes back, for me, it was service to the community. I have a long career in organizing and working with legislators and, the nuts and bolts of that process. And I really enjoy bringing people together, working on an issue, and then solving a real problem for the community. So I did that in my career. And then when I moved to King Farm, I got involved in the neighborhood and then the Citizens Assembly. I've been president for the last 4 years, and I've been working with the city on various issues. And I just believe that, we really need experienced leadership on the council and have the real results to make a difference. So, I really think that I have what it takes to be on the city council and debate, engage with others, and then make decisions for our community to be even better than it is.
Great answer. Now we're ready to turn to some of the callers. Let's go. We're going to go to Lynn, calling from Rockville.
Hi, Barry. This is Lynn Sabara. How are you? I'm happy to hear you and participate in this. I'm a big supporter of you. My question is really, I've lived here for a number of years, as you know, and I see that there is really no emphasis in the Montgomery County as well as Rockville on mental health services. We've tried, we have an issue in my family, and we've tried to find some, group homes and mental health support, and it's very, very difficult, almost non-existent. So I'm wondering if this is something that we can put kind of at the top of the list as a priority to look into.
No, thanks for the question, Lynn. And great to talk with you. So mental health is really something that is a big concern of mine. I think that on the council, it will be one of my priorities. But we had the council earlier with the mayor and council. And one thing that they did fund, which really was a credit to them, was Chief Victor Brito. He's the police chief at Rockville City Police Department. And one thing that he wanted to do, and the mayor and council agreed to fund it, was to fund a mental health specialist who works with the police department now. And when they have a call or an arrest, they evaluate those people who've been arrested or who they're encountering, and they're able to assess, whether they're having maybe a bad day or a mental health break. And it's really an innovative program, and that's the kind of thing that I think we need more of in Rockville. So thank you for the question. I think it's an excellent question, and it's something that I really want to work on the city council.
Lynn, do you mind if I ask you a question?
Sure.
You said you're a supporter of Barry's. Why? What makes you support Barry? Why do you think he's the candidate to vote for?
Well, I had the pleasure of seeing him in action as the president of the Homeowners Association, and I can see not only what the priorities were, but how he handled situations, which was very impressive. And also, I feel that, unlike many other people, he's had some of his own difficulties, which makes him, and to his credit, extremely sensitive to the plight of other people. And I don't see that very frequently in people that are in office. They're kind of, I don't want to put this in a nasty way, but sort of narcissistic about, what's in this for me. And Barry's not like that at all. It's always looking to see how he can help and how he can assist and how he can make life better for other people. And that is something that I feel is such an incredible gift.
Well, thank you, Lynn. I really appreciate that.
Lynn, you talked about mental health services. Are there any other issues that you think are important that Barry and the City Council need to address?
Well, everybody has their own thing, and we have a young person here in our family who has schizophrenia, and it's been very difficult to get some services for her, so we're interested in that. But on a whole, I think we're very fortunate. We live in a good area, and yes, crime is on the rise, but I think we're not unique in that situation. So I think those things are important, and I agree, and it's something that we should look into. But like I said, our family has our own specific needs. So thank you.
Well, thank you for sharing all that with us, Lynn, and thank you for your question for Barry. We appreciate you participating this evening. So, Barry, I have a question for you. You talked a little bit about the crime. Lynn brought up crime. How do you think the Rockville City Police Department is doing, in your view, and what needs to be done?
Yeah. So in King Farm, there's a perception that crime is on the rise. I'm not really sure that it is, but that's the perception, and I think we'll bear it out in the coming years. But regardless of whether it is or isn't on the rise, we should fully fund the police department and make sure that they're getting what they need and that their pay scale and benefits are commensurate with what the kind of department that we want. And I say that because, there's a real shortage of police officers coming online and just in the job. And the municipalities and counties and other agencies around the region and nationwide are really getting competitive for those jobs or for the people that do those jobs. So I think it's really incumbent on the mayor and council, the next mayor and council, to keep the pay scale and other things, the benefits, really competitive so that we can keep our best people on the force and we can continue to hire a diverse and inclusive population for the police force so that it looks like all the rest of Rockville, because I believe that's really important as well. So it's a great question, and I think we have a phenomenal police force. I think Chief Victor Brito is doing a good job. I think the mayor and council have so far supported innovative programs, and I think we should continue to do that on the next mayor and council.
In our poll, we asked about what issues people think are the top issues, and crime and public safety came in first. Tied at second among them was the lack of affordable housing. Let's talk about that issue.
Sure. So what do you want to know about the lack of affordable housing?
Well, it's a crisis nationwide. and it's certainly a concern in Rockville and Montgomery County. What can you and what can the council do better to provide more affordable housing here in Rockville?
Yeah, so it's a really complicated issue. So I will answer it in a couple of ways, and just bear in mind that I'm not a housing expert. I'm not an economic expert, so I don't really want to get into the weeds because I would get lost. But I've been talking to people going around Rockville, and especially renters of apartments and other things, and they've seen enormous increases in the last year or so in their rent. Some are as high as 20, 25%, and I don't think that's going to be sustainable. So we are going to have a Rockville that basically you can't afford to live in, and I don't think that that's the way that we want to go. So, I mean, the short term, there's going to be some movement to look at subsidies or other kind of voluntary rental increase agreements. I know we already have that in the city, but we need to put some more teeth in that. But the long term, I think we need more housing. And why that? I mean, more developments, more redevelopments, and something called ADUs. And ADUs are alternative dwelling units. And I know that there's been a big discussion on the city council, and the mayor and city council are still discussing it. And I think that's right, because I think we need to get that policy right on ADUs. But it's really helpful with seniors. Maybe your mom or dad. You need to have them close to you, but you don't really have the room, so you need to build another room out back. Well, that's actually an ADU, an alternative dwelling unit. They're for caregivers. They're for your adult children who might be moving back in, and you don't have room. So I think that is another way to get at the housing crisis. So there are various proposals and various solutions, and we need to use every tool that we have to make housing more affordable and adequate. So I think, does that answer a little bit about what I want to do on the council and how I see the problem?
Yes, absolutely. And you didn't get in the weeds. You had a great answer. I think you did great there with the topic. Don't sell yourself short, Barry. You know these topics. You're good. So I just want to reset where we are, and we're listening tonight. We have a telephone town hall. I'm Mark Silverstein. We're here. I'm your host for the evening, and we are honored to hear from Barry Jackson, who is running for Rockville City Council. We're talking to him about why he's running, what his qualifications are, what he hopes to do. We're also going to be taking your questions live, so I want people to know that they can ask Barry questions simply by pressing 0 on their phone keypad now to be added to the queue to ask Barry questions about why he's running for city council, what he thinks about the different issues, and his great answer about working on affordable housing here in Rockville. So dial 0, press 0 on your phone keypad now to ask Barry a question. Meantime, I got some more questions for you, Barry. You talk about that you're running for everybody. I think that's great. When you talk to people and, you agree, you disagree, it's great to hear from everybody. How do you get everybody to work together? Yeah, no, that's actually a good question. And you don't always. People will disagree. There are issues that I'm on one side of and other people on the other side. But I think you have a civil dialogue and you engage with people. You make sure that the door, if you will, is open. And so, when you have that real conversation and then you come up with a compromise solution, if you can. Obviously, not every solution has a compromise.
but you come up with a compromise, and then you try to explain it as best you can to the people that are impacted or that just want to know. And I find that generally when you explain something and you have a dialogue and you're not afraid to talk to people, there's usually an acceptance, and there's usually a better solution that comes about from actually talking and engaging and having a lot of voices at the table rather than shutting them out.
Yeah, no, that's so important these days to be able to have a dialogue, whether you agree or disagree, a respectful dialogue. You listen to each other, you hear what they're saying, and you try to find some common ground. I think that's really what's missing in so much of our public dialogue these days, and I'm glad this is something that's top of your list. What happened recently? Talk about the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department, where they went above and beyond to help out a neighborhood recently.
Yeah, no, that's a great story. So basically, the community garden, the Farmstead Community Garden, just so you know, it isn't part of King Farm Citizens Assembly. It's run by the city. There's been some confusion about that. So the community garden they have well water, basically, that the city provides. And they found one day, a hot day, that the well no longer worked. And it was a weekend. And to their credit, the city got workers out there. They tried to fix the well. It wasn't working. And the gardeners were getting desperate because it was really hot. And this has been about a couple of days since the well actually worked. So they were actually going to truck water up there. And, I mean, they were really, it was weighing on their minds. So I called around, and, one of the people that answered was in the volunteer fire department and said, well, yeah, we'll go out there and take a look. Unbeknownst to me, they actually drove up to the garden, and they were able to bring a fire engine in and hose down the entire garden with a hose. So, I mean, it was a great thing for the gardeners and great for the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department because they got a lot of zucchinis and tomatoes and eggplants and squash. They left with a bounty. But I just think that was the perfect example of the can-do attitude of both the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department and the city. I mean, the Tim Chestnut from the Parks and Recreation was an awesome help. He actually was instrumental in getting the fix. But before that, they had like a 200-gallon tank of water that they were going to install by the gardens to make it easier for them to water their plants. But then they got it working, the well working, so that it wasn't needed. But I was just so impressed with the city staff and with Tim Chestnut and with the Rockville Volunteer Fire Department because they just went above and beyond the call of duty.
That makes you think about Tip O'Neill's old line that all politics is local. It all worked out. Everybody did what they were supposed to do, and you wouldn't think that this would be something that needed to be handled, but it was handled, and it was handled well, and all the services provided did their job and did their job right. And then, I love the idea that they all left with a bounty of fruit and vegetables. So Barry, are you ready for another poll? Let's take another poll.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Do you plan to vote in the November 7th Rockville City election? Press 1 if the answer is yes. Press 2 if the answer is maybe. Press 3 if you're not sure. Press 4 if the answer is no. Let's go over those again. Do you plan to vote in the November 7th Rockville City election? Press 1 if the answer is yes. Press 2 if it's maybe. Press 3 if you're not sure. and press 4 if the answer is no. Also, if you have a question for Barry, press 0 on your keypad, and we'll take your question live on the air. We're getting responses now as we speak. So, Barry, what on the King Farm Citizens Assembly, while we wait for the results of this poll, tell us about your work there.
Sure. So basically, I've been involved with the Assembly off and on for the better part of 20 years. I've been on the board, been chairman, been on the External Affairs Committee, which deals with the city, county, and state government. I've been on the Budget Committee as well as communications. And then my last election was I spent 4 years now as president of King Farm. So, I mean, King Farm is a large association. We have 10,000 people in King Farm. We have 1,500 houses. We have sidewalks, roads, community center, 2 pools we operate, and a multi-million-dollar budget. So it's almost like a small town in and of itself. But the most enjoyable thing about it is that I get to engage with other people, other residents, and just a personal privilege of mine is that I get to go to all the activities and see, from the neighborhood village, which is made up of mostly older people, to the swim team, which is made up of young children, to everything in between. And we have activities that we have concerts on the lawn. We have food trucks. So it's really a job that is fulfilling to me, at least, to see everybody pulling together and kind of being a real neighborhood community.
You had me at food trucks. So you want to know the response to the poll about people wanting whether they're going to vote or not, whether yes, maybe, you're not sure, and no? 100% said they're going to vote.
Wow.
Which is great to hear. That's great to hear. And you explain that the vote is not just on November 7th, that there's plenty of time to vote beforehand. Take us through that a little bit, please.
Yeah. So, people ask me, when is the election? Like it's just one day. And I know that, in the past that has been the case. Past elections for ages have been one day, but it's been loosening up. And now Rockville has really been progressive in loosening up the votes and making sure that everybody gets a chance to vote. They mail out the ballots. It's almost all mail-in ballots now. You can cast your vote in person if you want to at the City Hall or the Thomas Farm Community Center on November 7th. But otherwise, the ballots are sent out on or about October the 12th. And as soon as you get the ballots, you can fill them out. You can send them back into the mail. You can go to a drop box that's near you. Or, if you want to, you can wait until November the 7th and either drop them off or vote in person. But really, election in Rockville is about 3 weeks. So, there's really no excuse for not filling a ballot and participating in the election and doing your civic duty.
Exactly. You got that right. And the responders to our poll, 100% of them are going to vote. Whether it's by mail, in person, they're going to vote. So we're glad to hear it. And it's great that there are different ways that people can vote. So they can wait to the last second or get it done long before. Just to repeat, if you have a question for Barry, dial 0 on your keypad, and we'll put you right through to Barry, and you can ask him anything you want about his campaign for Rockville City Council. I want to follow up on King Farm. What do you think was the biggest issue you've had to deal with at King Farm? The one issue that stands out. Take us through it, how you worked to solve it. Tell us about it.
Oh, man. That is really an easy question. No, because, I've been president for 4 years. I was elected. I was doing the job because somebody else resigned, but I was elected in 2020, and something big happened in 2020. You might remember, or 2000. It was either 2019, 2020. It's all blurred together now, but the world stopped. We had the COVID pandemic. I mean, it was rolling along, and city governments, county governments, the states nationwide, they were really dealing with it. But down on the local level, we had to deal with it as well, and there really was no roadmap to deal with COVID. And so I'm really proud of the way we handled it. We got together with management. We got together with the board. We talked about how we could keep people safe, but still keep functioning, the King Farm Association functioning. And so we made the changes. We took the meetings and went to Zoom. We cut out the word to residents. We made sure that everybody knew what was going on, and then past that initial response, we had to keep monitoring it, and then there were decisions that had to be made, like the pool. So you don't think about it until you're in that situation, but do you open the pool? Do you have only limited participation in the pool? So maybe 100 people can't participate, but maybe you only allow 20. I mean, there was all sorts of things that we had to come up with the answer for on the fly. And I think by and large we did a good job, and I think that residents were happy. But more than that, I think that we were successful in keeping the Citizens Association functioning and doing what it needed to do, even in the face of a global pandemic.
That must have been, near impossible. But yeah, I can understand why it's the number one topic or the biggest issue you've had to face. We've all had to face in the last few years. You talk about talking with people, and is there anything that it's great that you're getting out there and talking with people you agree with, or people that agree with you, people that may not necessarily agree with you? Is there anything that you're hearing from voters that surprised you?
Somewhat. I mean, not really surprising, but one voter was really. It was to do with COVID again, but the fact that federal workers are working from home a great deal, and there's a real push to have them go back into the office, and I really haven't been paying attention to the issue, but it seems like there's a push and pull. In Washington D.C., they're really trying to get more workers to go back because obviously of the restaurants, the public transit, they're dependent on people coming into the city. And she was a little bit upset because she said, I don't want to do that because when I'm at home, I'm just as efficient as when I'm in the office. But at home, I go to restaurants for lunch. I go to get my hair cut at the local beauty salon rather than going downtown to downtown D.C. And I think that a lot of people are in that boat. Work has really changed because of the pandemic and other things. The proliferation of Wi-Fi and faster speeds for internet. I mean, it's not I think we need to change our outlook and our understanding of what work is and how we work, and modernize that. Because I think that the new people in the workforce are more flexible and demanding, to work from home more often. And I think we need to, kind of keep up with that trend and take it into account in everything that we do.
Another pressing issue: help to keep seniors aging in place.
Yeah, no, I mean that is, it goes to the heart of the Neighbors Villages. So if you're not familiar with the Neighbors Village, it's a concept that originated, I believe, in Massachusetts, but it's spread around the nation. And don't quote me on that. I'm not sure about Massachusetts, but it feels right. But the point is that it's a loose organization of grassroots people who come together in a neighborhood, and they come together and they might they might have a program to take seniors or other people that need it to a grocery store or to their doctor's appointments, or it may be estate planning, or it may be something to do with how to get on Medicare or how to navigate the bureaucracy, or it just could be social gathering. I mean, whatever it is, the goal is to have a community that is together for aging in place, that you can age in place comfortably, gracefully, and with all the services that you need. And so I think that it's really important to have that, but also have support from the city services and others. And I think the city does a good job, but I think it's going to be even more important in the coming years as people really start to age in place and the numbers get even greater and greater.
On this topic, Mildred joins us from College Gardens. She wants to talk a little bit about seniors as well. Mildred, welcome.
Hi, Mildred.
Hi, how are you? Listen, my question is, what are you going to do to help us maintain our residency in the city? We have, as far as social things, we have a senior center, but that's terribly expensive. And I just know, how can we maneuver to get more social activities for us?
No, that's an excellent question. And let me ask you a question. I mean, you're asking about social activities, but what else do you need? You need services to stay in your homes, or kind of put me in a church, so to speak?
Well, I really don't need it. Well, we do. We need somebody to help us with getting contractors to do work on our houses and that sort of thing. It just seems like the senior center is just not geared to people, to all of us. I'll put it that way.
No, and that's a good question. So, number one, I mean, I think you've heard, I enjoy talking to people and engaging with people, and I think that I want to hear things like that if I'm on the council, because I want to then work with staff to understand exactly what we're offering and what actually is needed, and make sure that the two are in sync. I know that the senior center, I know the people there, and they do a good job. They care. But I think the programs that we offer should reflect what the residents of Rockville do want. So that's a little bit about how I would deal with it. But does that answer your question, or do you want something more specific?
No, one thing that really bothers me is I've been in Rockville for 54 years. And when we started at the senior center, your membership included everything in the center. You could go to the exercise room. Now they have broken it out that you have to be a member before you can even join the exercise room. And I'm wondering why they put that together, because many of us don't have don't need the social programs, or we do need it, but we also need the exercise room. But unless you have both memberships, you can't participate.
That's really interesting. So there's kind of a barrier, and I mean, exercise is really important for everybody, but especially for seniors. You know what? It is something that I will take under advisement and work on if I'm fortunate enough to be on the council, because I think that there's some way to make it easier for seniors to do what they need to do. And so to that point, it sounds like you don't need a caregiver right now, but I've been told by people as I go around the city that they have caregivers. So people accompany others to the senior center, maybe a caregiver with their client, or a caregiver with their wife, or a caregiver with their son or daughter, or vice versa. And unfortunately, they go to events that are that you have to pay for. And I think right now they pay for the caregiver and for the person that's being cared for. So it's actually a disincentive to actually go, because you have to pay for two. And I think that we should do something to make certain that there's a discount, or that you don't pay for a caregiver, because they're necessary and they do needed work. And whether it's a city program or something else, I think that caregivers should be rewarded rather than penalized by having to pay. So thank you for your question, Mildred. I really appreciate it. Oh, are you still there?
I think, Mildred, you still there with us?
Yes. Yes.
Did Barry answer your question?
Yes, he answered my question, somewhat. It's just that I'm just not sure why they linked the whole program together, because most of the seniors, some of the programs that they have is we don't need it, we don't want to do it, but we like to exercise, and you can't do it unless you have both memberships. That's what I'm saying.
No, and that makes sense to me. And so this is something that we'll look into and talk to people, because I think you should kind of have a la carte, a menu of offerings, rather than just be forced to take both of them. But thank you for the question, and thank you for clarifying and for telling me about it, because this is a good listening session for me as well.
Thank you, Mildred. We appreciate you calling in. If you have questions for Barry Jackson, candidate for Rockville City Council, press 0 on your keypad, and you can ask Barry your question. That's 0 on your keypad to ask Barry Jackson a question, candidate for City Council. Barry, one of the things that's a prime interest and issue is business and City Council and business in Rockville. And a lot of times I'm guessing you're hearing about the Rockville Town Square, but it goes beyond that. Tell us about what you're thinking in terms of how business and the City Council can work together, or needs to work together differently, better. Well, talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, I heard today the mayor did a state of the city at Glenview Mansion, and the city, the Chamber of Commerce put it on, and it was really a good talk. And so the Chamber of Commerce and READY stands for Rockville Economic Development Incorporated, which is kind of a organization of the city. And I think they do a good job. I think that the struggles associated with town center are numerous, and they're trying to tackle them with various degrees of success. But I also think that because of the big struggles, that they kind of focus in a little bit too closely to town center, and to the detriment of other businesses in Rockville. I mean, King Farm has a village center that needs assistance. Rockshire, Falls Grove, other businesses, Montrose, the 355 Carter, they all need assistance. They all need support. They all need to be promoted. And I think they have started to do that. I think Ready has a Small Business Impact Fund, which just recently was opened up from this town center kind of focus to more broad to every business in Rockville, particularly. So that's, I think the city council does a good job, and I would want to continue to do that kind of cooperation and even more, because I had to go back to COVID, but it really did a job on businesses around Rockville, and they need support and stability and promotion every area. So that's something that actually is going to be a big priority for me, is working with others to promote the businesses around Rockville and not just in the town center.
One of the points you made early on in the conversation tonight was about the fact that the city council is losing a lot of members, and with it, experience. Take us through that a little bit. Tell us how that hurts, helps. Explain how the departure of a number of council members is going to make a difference.
Yeah. So the council is going to turn over. They're adding 2 more members, so that's going to be they're open seats. But there are members retiring. There's members running for mayor. So I think that we're going to have an entirely new city council for the most part, and I think that they're going to chart a course for the city, and it's exciting, but it also means that we should look carefully at who we're electing and make sure that we have experience, we have leadership, and we have real results that we can point to before you elect people to the city council. And so, I put myself out there as being experienced with leadership and real results, because I've been president of the 1/8, basically, of the city of Rockville. The King Farm Citizens Assembly, it's large. It's actually 1/8 of the area of Rockville. I think it's maybe even larger in terms of population. So, I have the experience to actually move into the city council seat and hit the ground running. So that's a little bit about the city council and what's coming up, and why this election is really sort of important, because it's going to be all new members of the city council and mayor, and so you want some experience.
Yeah, and I like the way you put that. I never thought of it that King Farm is like a city unto itself, and it really is. That brings a whole new perspective to things. And something else that brings a whole new perspective, and you mentioned it, just take us through. You mentioned that you had a stroke and it changed your perspective on things. Talk about that a little bit, please.
Yeah, no. So, 12 years ago I had a stroke, and I've gotten better. But when I first had a stroke, things that I took for granted, like walking across the street at Safeway. There's a Safeway near me, and I used to walk all the time to Safeway, especially because immediately after I had a stroke, I couldn't drive, which is another story entirely. But what I noticed, what I found, was I couldn't make it across the street because the green light didn't, the walk sign didn't last long enough because, I was shuffling across the street. And it just came to me that many people, disabled people in Rockville, have the same kind of concerns and the same kind of life experiences. And so that's actually, what I want to do on the city council is be a voice and be a perspective of people that is a little bit different from maybe the rest, and make sure that they're not forgotten about when we do a pedestrian master plan or the master plan for the city, the 2040 plan. I think we do a good job, but unless you have been in those shoes, you might forget to ask questions or to make sure that everybody is taken into account. So I think it's important to have a different perspective and to have lived that experience, and then to be on the city council to make sure to bring it up.
Well, thank you for sharing those thoughts and your experience there. Let's do one last poll before we wrap things up here. One last poll after hearing from Barry Jackson. How are you feeling about him? Press 1 if you're definitely voting for Barry Jackson. Press 2 if you're leaning towards voting for him. Press 3 if you want more information about him. So let me go over that again. Press 1 if you're definitely voting for Barry Jackson. Press 2 if you're leaning towards voting for him. Press 3 if you want more information about him. And while we wait for the results to come in on our flash poll, Barry, any topics we didn't cover tonight? Anything you want to say as we start to wrap up here?
No, not really. I think that it's been a good conversation. I think we've covered a lot of ground. I really enjoyed speaking with Rockville voters tonight and with you, Mark, and answering some of your questions about me and why I'm running for the city council. I just reiterate, we called out to every neighborhood in Rockville because I'm serious about being a representative for all. So I hope I've earned your vote, or at least your consideration. And you can go to votebarryjackson.com to learn more about me, or you can go to facebook.com/votebarryjackson and like my page, and that way you can stay up to date on information about me that way. So thank you. Thanks so much for listening tonight. Thank you, Mark, for hosting and keeping it all together. And together we'll build a better future for all of Rockville.
And the results are in, and the good news is the majority are leaning towards voting for you. So people are leaning towards voting for you. It means you got a little more work to do, and you're going to reel them all in, and you're going to go check out barryjackson.com and check them out on Facebook. Thank you so much for participating, making this such an informative evening. If you'd like to learn more about Barry Jackson, go to votebarryjackson.com. That's correct. I'm staying corrected. Votebarryjackson.com to learn more, volunteer, or donate. Every little bit helps. Barry, you want to take us home tonight? Say good night to everybody.
Good night, everybody. I really enjoyed it, and I do humbly ask for your vote.
Thank you, Barry. Thank you, callers. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate it, and remember to vote this upcoming election. Have a great night.